was the one who was in such despair about the environment going down the toilet, but what you see is that as he's been able to find a project where he thinks he's actually finally making a difference in the amount of energy that we use, he's finally feeling more hopeful, and especially as this is scaling up and being applied to a greater number of homes and churches. So Lucy Bauer, who had been the coordinator of the Green Sanctuary Committee, she said he was in such despair, but once he found the project that worked for him, he became hopeful. And doing is the seed of hope. That's what makes a difference for people. So you see the economic benefits to the community. Maine winters are a little worse than ours, so it's making it easier for people to afford to live there. You see the community building within the church as the people work together, and then from church to church as they partner with other churches on these projects, and from church to community, the community-supported agriculture, community-supported fishery, working with people outside their church. And the great personal satisfaction of doing something with your hands and seeing the results. One of the comments Frank made, he said, you know, when you're trying to get a politician to do climate policy, you advocate and you hope that in the future, somebody you barely know will do something that you want him to do. And then the process falls apart and you start all over again the next year. But when you build something with your hands, it's direct, it's personal, and you see the results at the end of it. And he thinks that's one reason the community builds are so popular, that all of the churches that have been involved with them have come back and wanted to do them a second year. People feel they're doing something that matters. They're making a difference. So here, as in the other churches, we see people are living their values. They're working for something they love. They're working for their local community. They're working to protect nature. They're building on the experience from their first project. It was a small start, 15 people, but it grew to 200. And when the fishery project started, they were able to say, well, if it's okay to start small, it'll grow, and it did. And the window project started with the church, then a few church members, then a community build. Now it's in multiple neighborhoods. So this process of starting small and then growing. So in all of these communities, we see a process in which people really do have to start by thinking about, how does this connect to my faith? It needs to be grounded in faith. Otherwise, why are you doing it through the church? The clergy are an important part of this process. They're the ones who help to affirm that connection, who say, as people of faith, we are called to do this, to be stewards of this wonderful world, to work for justice for all people. You see that in all of these communities, people are working to protect things they love, places, children, community. And the range of actions they take, because they're finding the projects that work for them, given the emphases within their congregations and the opportunities available where they live. So some do political advocacy, some do renewable energy, some do green building or local food or ecosystem restoration. We also see that integration of ministry and worship and education coming together. So that people aren't doing something new on top of everything else. They're doing something that belongs with everything else that they're already doing. It's an extension of what these faith communities do. In the face of climate change, all of these actions may seem small. But they give me hope for 3 reasons. First, these people of faith are creating a vision of what they want to work for, not just what they are against. And I think that's something that religion brings to this effort. Religion provides us with those visions. Building the kingdom of God, building the beloved community, tikkun olam, the healing of the world. We find these as part of every tradition. Fear can prompt us to take action, but fear is exhausting. It's when we have something to work toward, something we want, that we're able to keep going. They're also building resilient communities. They're reaching out. It's going beyond the house of worship. They're building strength within, but they're also building those community ties to other faith communities and to people outside their faith communities. And as we face the effects of climate change, as we find ourselves needing to adapt, those relationships are going to be very important, especially if we're going to have a sense of justice in the way we adapt in the future. And finally, these local stories can have global effects. They're like drops in a pond with ripples spreading outward. The Trinity House Church, you know, they got a national movement. They've also managed to prevent fracking in their community. When the city council was going to hear a company's proposal to start fracking, they went to the city council and they rounded up a bunch of other people to come with them. And one of the things in Virginia is if you say you're from the Sierra Club and you want to talk to a politician, you're not going to get through the door. If you say you're from a church, for some reason they open the door to you. So they were able to go in and to testify and say, you don't have enough information to make a good decision here. And if something goes wrong, it's irreversible. This shouldn't be approved. And the city council basically, what they've done is they're not saying yes, they're not saying no. They've decided to say, we don't have enough information to make a decision, and as long as we don't make a decision, nobody can get mad at us on either side, and we are safe, but nothing will change. Many churches are adding solar panels and gardens. Every dot on this map is a congregation, a church, a synagogue, a mosque, a temple here in the United States. And this map is outdated. But every one of these is a community that's doing creation care, that's caring for the environment. And finally, there's that community-supported fishery. What they did in Port Clyde became the basis for starting a community-supported fishery in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Between 700 and 1,000 people buy their fish direct from the fishermen in Massachusetts now. The BBC heard about this and they came over and they did a film, and now they're doing community-supported fisheries over in England on the other side of the Atlantic. So this drop in the pond in Maine spreads south down the Atlantic and all the way across the ocean. These stories give me hope that we can build more resilient human and non-human communities, and that we'll be able to work together to adapt to the coming challenges. Here in Kalamazoo, we should start by asking ourselves, what do we love? What motivates us to take action in spite of our fear? As people of faith, as people with values, what can we do here in our community that fits our community context? It's okay to start small. It will grow. But we must start, because in doing is the seed of hope. Thank you for letting me share these stories with you.
We need to adapt our schedule just a little bit. No more thunder? Okay. So we'll take 15 minutes for you to talk to each other at the tables. It's going to be a little challenging because this is a room full of hard surfaces, but if we focus, we can do that. Every table has a facilitator that will help that conversation happen, and then we'll come back together at 7:25 for a closing.